Just wanted to let you know that.
So welcome everybody to the February 2nd Ortelius architecture meeting. And as you're saying, Sasha, you have the development environment getting looking pretty good.
Looking so good. Developers can literally just use their VS Code to a container within the kind cluster and develop straight out of there.
Okay, cool.
So we can deploy a container that has everything that an Ortelius developer would need for that matter.
Perfect.
And then they just connect with their VS Code and they just install an extension. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen.
And I'm actually using a CNCF sandbox project called Dev Spaces.
Oh yeah.
To do this. So what I did was I was cheeky. I took Microsoft's Universal Container, hacked it, took out their fluff and rebuilt it, then pushed it to my Docker Hub and then used that as the image.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I had a so one of the issues I'm working on as well was to clean up some of our security scoring of our container images, and I went through and did the distro list from Google, and a person figured out how to strip back a lot of the fluff that's in distro lists even as well.
Made it even lighter.
Yeah, it got rid of a lot of extra stuff that you don't need for Python.
Oh, cool.
So because of that, we were able to go from like 52 critical issues down to 0 and 1 high.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm going to be rolling that out through all the microservices
cool.
at that level. So let me go ahead and jump into some of the, share my screen here. Okay, get out of the way, go into preview mode. My renders. All right, so I'm working on the architecture document. So I will publish this probably as part of our documentation. So we have kind of an idea of what the architecture looks like today. And some of the microservices, just describing how we're a hybrid, and then the new architecture, describing what that's going to look like. And then for the new REST APIs, what those are going to look like. So we're going to go from basically the monolith plus the 5 or 6, the monolith plus the 6 microservices over to the couple dozen microservices here. And I was able to go ahead and lay out the schemas. So if we go over to the other project, where'd it go? Come on, Microsoft. There it is. So I was able to take that. Let me get rid of this window here. So based on that list of the microservices, I was able to build out the class definitions in Python, so we know what a domain looks like, what a user looks like. Looking at the Orango database, they use this key, underscore key is like their way to index or create a unique object inside of it. So in our world, domains are unique. So, and they're stored as strings, which works really nice because that string will map over to the IPFS SID as well. So we'll be able to move things in and out IPFS into Orango pretty easily. So I've been able to go through and create all the different objects that we're going to need. The one I haven't done yet is the SBOM class, and I was going to see what Joseph had going on that front since he was working on that. So with all of the different objects that we have, some of the things that when we go through and kind of expand it all out into a JSON format, we're able to really look at the data and understand it. So this is like everything, like the big expanded picture of things. We'll be able to then render it in off of one of the microservices. So when you look at the microservice and you do your get, we're going to get the key, and then we'll return all the JSON format. So it makes it really handy. So I'm going to roll out and stub out all of the microservices that are listed in the architecture document.
Nice.
So we'll be able to have.
Is that Swagger? You're
this
using
is Swagger.
there. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. The if we actually look at the class, so this is the stubbed out version. So you just give it to the endpoint. So like the one we're just looking at was this one, the get. And all it says is I'm going to do a retrieve, and I'm going to return this object. And it goes off and generates all the Swagger for us.
Oh, that's real nice.
Yeah, it's definitely more self-documenting than what we had before.
Mm.
Is written in Fast API, right?
Yes. Yep, Fast API. And it's a newer version of Fast API, so the format has changed a little bit for Python 3.10. So it uses this this type of notation. So Nick, on your side, you'll be able to I'll be able to give you this this document, and we'll be able to give you all of the inputs and outputs. So things like what we're going to have for that are going to be list based, and things that are going to be kind of like compartmentalized, like a detailed view. So if we look at the issues, oops. What we've done is, oops, go right there. If we look at some of the, so we've tagged all of the UI parts with a label. Where is UI? Come on, UI. So like an example layout that we're going to need is an application list. And some possible things that we've looked at that you may be able to get an idea. So basically this is the list of application versions. And then if we'll have the same thing for component versions. And then we'll have like the component details, which will be another. So this is where we get into the boxes. That we'll be able to utilize as well. If this layout makes sense, or if we need to change it up or reorganize it. I don't know if we want to make these like collapsible sections, kind of like that Swagger was.
I guess it highly depends on the information it contains. We'll need to check in a more detailed way, but yeah, we'll need to see.
But I just throw out and if you need more details about the data, just let me know, and we'll be able to get that sorted out for you. So there's a bunch out here, things that we need to add. So like one of the things that we run into with our current list view is we list every single version of every single object, and we have this concept of a base object. So it's like the placeholder, and then from that base object you have all the versions of it. So at the highest level, when we're talking like an application list, that may be just a list of all the base objects. And then when we get into, when you click on a base object, we may go to another list, or kind of like split screen it, where you have all the versions and you select the version, and then you go into the details of that type of thing. So we're going to be talking, lots of rows. If we look at rolling out Ortelius for the whole open source world, we're talking millions and millions of rows that we have to kind of navigate through. And that's where, if you look at some of the ones that we kind of threw out there, like Artifact Hub, it doesn't really, kind of gives you some basic stuff, but it's it's really limiting what you're looking for. And then they use tags as well. If we look at Ortelius, it does that filter thing. But and the one thing I don't like about this is that you have to know what you're looking for. Where if you go over like the NPM, I think this one of the other ones.
Yeah, I went there yesterday to Artifact. I was trying to find where I can override the engine exports.
Yeah. So this one's the same way. You just can't tell what you're looking for. I think PyPy. Let's see what this one. They used to, some of them will use tags to say, I want to, here's that may be the way we do it, like on this browse projects framework. Let's say we want something to do with Django, something like that. It's up to you. Just bring some ideas, because like, see, this brought back 10,000 projects with that classification that we specified. So that may be a way that we need to do it, is to do like this filter, let's say environment on everything that's uses let's say WebAssembly. So now it's actually it did a double filter. So I'm totally open to ideas on this. I'm throwing it over to you.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll need just to go through all the collected requirements. To see the whole scope of the work. Yeah.
And right now I threw a week's worth of work out there. If you think it's going to take longer, let me know, and we'll change the bounty for getting paid on this stuff. So it was like a week's worth for the application list. I think a week for the all the other ones, or it's close.
I guess yes. I'll just let me go through it and provide you with my estimations for
Yeah.
each one.
Yeah, and this is assign yourself to which ones you're working on, just so we
Mhm.
don't have somebody else work on the same thing at the same time.
Mhm.
So that was what we have going on that front. The one thing that I'm still working on is we end up having this, we're able to generate like a denormalized version of all of our data, our sample data from the classes over here. So that's working really well. The thing I'm working on now is to look at storing each one of these things in as an NFT. So in order to do that, we have to kind of convert the object into a something that we can hash and store as an NFT, the JSON. So let me find a better example. So here's like the domain object. So we have the name of the object and the type, and then this will end up being the SID for the NFT that gets created, and that's basically the key. Now let's look at if I have a user. Let me find a better. I don't quite have it working 100%, and that's where it's falling down when it goes into the nested objects. So here's a user. So we have our admin user. It ends up with the 42. And then we can see where it's referenced. So we have another reference to it. When we start expanding out or doing the re-referencing, you'll see like the creator. The creator, instead of it being the initial object, is the key to the creator. This is the key to the domain. This is the key to the license. And then this ends up being the key to all this stuff hashed together. So basically what we're doing is we're replacing the nested objects with pointers to the other objects. So that will allow us to store everything into the NFT storage unique once, and not have a bunch of duplication of storing the same object, the same information multiple times as different objects. So this is where I'm working on the conversion routine from the nice pretty version that's readable over to the key referenced, the normalized version. And we'll have to I have to see how Joseph did on the SBOM part, working with this. So that
Yeah,
makes
so
sense, what we're kind of
sorry.
doing. Yeah, go ahead, Sasha.
He sent a PR through. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
I approved it. I think he's waiting on you, Steve, and Utkarsh, I think.
Okay. I will take a look at that.
There was one story created where we had this similar objective. So like I was working on that.
Yeah, so this is doing the stuff at the for like a component. I think that other story was for an SBOM.
SBOM, yes, correct. But the function would be same, right?
I think so. I haven't looked at the SBOM data and what we have going on that front.
Okay, so currently the method that I'm writing that will work generically for any JSON file. So it will go on traverse like for the nested objects, and for that nested objects until unless it gets the single unit, right? It will go ahead and create that as an NFT.
And will it go in and update the parent object with the reference to the NFT? Okay, cool. What are you writing that in, Utkarsh?
That is in Python.
Okay, cool. And how far along are you?
Give me like 1 or 2 days. Like on the weekends, I'll complete that out.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Because I have the like what's happening on my side is like this owner here is nested and the owner is defined elsewhere. So it's like when you get into these, so it's actually where I'm having problems is you have I can get the owner in place, but the domain has to be like this domain would be a reference to the key as well. So of the domain key. So it's one of those nested things. So if when you figure it out, let me know. I'm anxious to utilize it. It has to do with some recursion that you have to implement.
Yep. I'll show you. Let me complete it out. Yeah.
Awesome. Because I think once we have that, we'll be able to move from this pretty format over into the NFT format, and we'll have a nice way to move things back and forth. And the key for Rango will be the SIDS. So we'll have that as well. So there'll be a slightly different version when we put this into a Rango. So what ends up happening is you actually have a domain object with the name, and the key will be this. But we'll be able to transpose things around, so remaining keeping the integrity in place. Oh, one of the things, Utkarsh, I found when we store the JSON in the NFTs, you need to make sure that you sort the keys before you persist it. Because the keys can be in Python, they could be in the dictionary, they can be unordered, so they could just be random. And without sorting them, we could get, even though we have the same data, we'll get a different hash. So make sure you sort the keys before you persist them. One of those weird things I found. So that's what we have going on. I will try to wrap up the architecture document here probably early next week. Stub out all of the microservices, and we'll be pretty good to go on that front. And does anybody have any questions? Does it make sense? And Utkarsh, I will go ahead and push the Ortelius common code up to the repo, and you'll be able to grab it and add your method in there. So like one of the things I did was, where is it? There's validate user. Here it is. So like validate user is a function that's used by every single microservice. So instead of it having defined in every single microservice, I just brought it into one common code place. So we'll be able to put your function in here to be able to do that. And then we'll need to add some test cases where we spit out the JSON, and then we bring it back in to make sure we get the same thing.
Okay.
So I will get this pushed up there so folks can look at it. The architecture document will move into, I'll figure out, I think it'll go in probably the user guide for Ortelius or somewhere. I'll let everybody know where I decide to put it. Any questions?
No.
We do have like a couple of more methods, like minifying JSON and I think storing into NFTs, these kind of methods. Can we also bring all those methods here?
Yes, definitely. So like I said, I'll get this pushed up there, and we can just start adding to it.
Now ask a dumb question.
Yep.
Is this in a container already?
This class, because it's kind of common code, it actually gets implemented as a Python module and pushed up to PyPy.
I'm just trying to understand how the microservices will look in the end.
Yeah. So what will happen is if you go to my other project, so this is the microservice project.
Oh, I see. You're making a package, right? So I can just pull it.
Yeah. So if you look at the very top here, we import from the Ortelius common. So because this microservice is only dealing with component versions and component details, it's only pulling in those two objects and the validate user.
So you're using UV corner. That's a little Python web server, right?
Yeah. It's used for fast API. So if we actually look at the code, like the get here. So this is where you're going to return the component version details, which is a whole object. All that JSON.
Oh, of course. Sorry, that's the microservice MS API. That's the microservice, right?
Yeah.
The Ortelius. Okay. And it's going to be responding on all these requests.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
So if we look at the.
Sorry if it's very obvious to everyone else.
Nope. So if we look at the Swagger for it. So this is the Swagger for that microservice.
Okay.
This
Now
code
it
that
makes
we're
complete
looking at.
sense. Okay, cool. And this is containerized already, right?
Yeah, it basically has a stub for a container.
Of course. So then this, when you pull for the dev environment, this obviously this microservice will run in your local, and you can test it in your local.
Yep. And like one of the things that we may want to do is like validate user. So validate user, you have to have like the JWT token. You have to have this whole login process working in order for you to safely access the microservice. Yeah. But one of the things we might want to do is invalidate user, set an environment variable that says dev environment and always return true. So you don't have to run a login.
Yeah, so it just takes that security out of the way, just removes that barrier so that you can get stuck in. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
that'll be great.
So in your dev environment, you don't have to run in order for you to work on your like individual microservice. You could pull up that container and give it that environment variable where we say dev environment equals true. Then you can test just as microservice without having multiple microservices running and JWT tokens and keys all in place.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So basically what ends up, this is just the stub. So we know we're going to return a component details. We have to validate the user so they can make sure they have access to the data that they're requesting. And then right now I'm just printing out to the console that you went and accessed this. But there's a whole set of logic that needs to go in here around going and getting the right thing from the NFT storage or Rango and all that stuff. So there's a whole bunch of logic that we still have to put in place, but this is just a stub so we can actually get the work farmed out to everybody.
You know, when the time is right, I would like to show, well, this is the right people to show, right? Developing inside a kind, okay, it's
let's
cluster.
Let's do that at the general meeting on, was it Tuesday?
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Is Monday the general meeting or Tuesday? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either. Which one is it? Let me go look at my
But if you,
calendar.
do you think Monday or Tuesday will work for you, Sasha?
Yeah.
Cool.
What's that? The 6th?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see anything on my calendar here. Hmm.
I'll
probably
double
just-
check.
It's probably just my calendar.
So that's kind of the game plan here.
Yeah, that's very
that-
cool.
Does that kind of make sense?
No, that completely makes sense.
So if we look back
Um,
at the architecture diagram, we're
That
going to
microservice is the API for
Yep.
for Ortelius, right?
Yep.
It's like the little API server, really.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll have, this, whatever, 18 microservices. So we'll have 18 containers running
Mm.
plus a couple for the front end piece.
Oh, yeah, cool. Those are all your backend pieces, right?
Yeah, this is all the back end pieces.
Okay, cool.
And
Yeah,
then
that
we'll
makes
have
complete sense.
we'll have a front end piece, and I don't know if Joseph had a chance to look at Riot. So Riot is one of the frameworks that Docker Hub's based on, and this other one, Svelte, is another one that Joseph liked. So one of these two will be the frameworks that we'll use for the front end side of things.
Oh, cool. So will the Nginx still be in the mix there, right? Directing to all the
Yeah,
Direct-
we'll
directing
still
to front ends and the back ends, right?
yeah we'll still use Nginx as a reverse proxy.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my idea for the dev environment was to map the kind cluster as extra port mappings to that Nginx container,
Yep.
right? So using a fixed node port so that developers can just hit their, I mean, it's easy, right? It's a fixed port all the time.
Yep.
And then they can just hit that from the internal browser on 127, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
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 And then the Nginx routing takes care of all of that. One of the
All the
things,
rest, yeah. So you only
one
need
of the-
access to the Nginx container, right? This is my understanding so far.
yeah, but one of the
Cool.
things with the Nginx container that we may need to play with is it'll fall over if not all of the backend services are running.
Uh-huh.
So if let's say you had 10 microservices defined to the Nginx
Mm,
reverse proxy and only 3 of them are running, it'll
Yeah.
fall over and it won't start.
oh,
So there may be some stuff that we want to do when you start up the Nginx,
So do you actually want your backend services up first before your Nginx, really?
right?
Because it kind of depends. It depends on those, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes
Now,
sense.
it may just be the services that need to be accessible and not necessarily the containers.
Mm,
We'll have to play with that.
yeah. Well, I can play with it in the local, which is the cool thing about it, right? You can
Yep.
mess around in here.
So one last thing, we're running over a little bit. We did move the docs and website containers from the Azure cluster over to Netify. So we're no longer running them as containers, but Netify has a way to run Hugo servers for us. So that has been done. So anytime you commit to the docs or the website on main, you do a merge or whatever, it'll get automatically deployed to Netify. Just simplifying life here.
That's what I'm using for localhost. I'm using a Netify DNS. So
Mhm.
nobody in Ortelius ever has to set up any routing or DNS inside their dev environment.
Nice.
It just routes out to that external. That DNS is external, so you can call it anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can say it's a .gd, so you can call it a Ortelius.gd. Always resolves to local. So if you need domains, you can do that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, there's another one that we used to use, Dynamic DNS.
Oh, yeah.
Was another service like that. So any questions? Any comments? So just remember, assign yourself to your issues. so we know who's working on what, and so we don't have two people working on the same thing. So, and then from there, Sasha, let's plan on you doing your a quick demo at our general meeting next week. And I will get the architecture document published here shortly, so everybody can view it. Once I figure out where to put it, I'll let everybody know on Discord.
Cool. Yeah, the README is where all the instructions are now.
Cool.
My README, if you go to the README now, you'll see it's pretty radical.
Cool. And then I am figuring out with GitHub the sponsorship on getting everything paid. So that is moving along. So hopefully here in the next week I'll have that sorted out so we can actually get our account set up, and I'll find out the instructions of what we need to do. Because you have to somehow, as a person wanting to get paid, there's something in your profile you have to set up, and set up like your banking information and things like that. So I'll figure that out and let everybody know what needs to happen there.
Cool.
Mhm.
Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody, and
Thanks,
we'll
Steve.
be talking to you soon. Thanks.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.